Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different than normal. I'm going to show you how I make a custom control harness for my arcade games. As you know, I use this controller here, which is a Neo Geo CD control pad with the 15-pin connector on the end. Now instead of splicing this into whatever I want to do, which I could do, but I'd have to disconnect the controls every time I want to play a new game, I'll take one of these guys. This is a 15-pin Neo Geo Extension cable. This isn't an official one, but this is a third-party one, and they were actually pretty cheap. And then what I'll do is I'll splice this up and connect the actual pins to some alligator clips. And you see this just goes like this, so that basically makes it very modular and makes it easy for me to plug this and unplug this from the controller harness whenever I want to play a different game. All we gotta do, of course, for this you just need a couple simple tools of basic pair of pliers, wire cutter stripper, knife for cutting the housing, and pair of scissors or a wire cutter to cut off the end of the wire, which of course is this end, since we don't need this. This is going to be our end that we will be splicing. So just basically take your scissors. It'll take a little to get through it and just get through the end of the cable. You can keep this if you think you're going to need it for anything, but you really won't. And now, if you see here, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick that up. There basically are 15 little wires in here. So what we have to do now is be very careful when you do this, but take your knife or your scissors or whatever and just kind of cut down the housing here. Luckily, this stuff doesn't seem to be too strong. The one that was the worst that I've ever had to strip down on a wire had to be a PC power cord. That's the hardest housing I've ever had to strip down, because that stuff, since that's meant to take 110 volt current from the wall, that has a lot of shielding and housing on it, whereas this is just a signal from a video game, so it's not really that much of a shielding. Although, I won't kid you, this is still enough of a housing that it's going to take a little while to strip it. So, I'm going to go ahead and strip this down, get it all the way down, probably to like here, so I have enough wire, maybe a little bit more, and then I will show you what we do from there. So let me go ahead and do that, and I will come right back. Okay, now you'll see I got this nice and stripped. Notice all this wire that I now have. The reason why I want to get this much is when you basically put your clips on these, they won't all have to be on top of each other when they're connected to the actual arcade control. So, like, for instance, if your JAMA harness is kind of spread out, you can spread these out a little bit more. So all we gotta do now is just take our housing, which is... This housing was actually very nice, and it was very easy to strip, which I'm hoping that means this wire is going to be halfway decent. Because all I really had to do is be very careful not to cut any of the wires, because they are very small. All I actually had to do was score the housing, and then once I got a little bit of this out, I just pulled the wire, and it just kind of went right through the housing, which was very nice. But, yeah, there's your wires. Another tool that I didn't mention earlier was a multimeter. This is very helpful. What you're going to do is turn it to here, which is continuity. And now that means you have continuity, and the 2 points that you're touching are the actual points you're trying to figure out. Because what we need to do is, now we have this, This is the connector like you would be plugging into your console. So, what we will do here is, this is pin number 1, and then that is pin number 8. The first pin here is ground. So that's a very important pin to find. And what I'll usually do, and now one thing I'll make mention of here, if you're using the controller I'm using, which is the gamepad, you need to wire up pin 1 to ground, and then pin 8 to +5. That also, I believe, is required if you are using the Neo Geo Bean joystick, which I'll display an image of on the screen right now. However, from what I understand, I can't confirm this because I don't have one. If you're using the regular rectangular joysticks that come with the standard AES system, I hear you don't need to use that voltage, but since I don't have any of those, as I said, I can't confirm that. That's just what I read. So basically what you're going to do here is your pin number 1 is your ground, your pin number 8 is your +5. Those are needed for both this controller and that Bean joystick. Then pin number 2 is not connected. Pin number 3 is select. Pin number 4 is the D button. Pin number 5 is the B button. Pin number 6 is right. Pin number 7 is down. As I said, pin number 8 is +5. Now, pin number 9 is just a repeat of the D button, which you don't need to use both. You just need to use pin number 4 or pin number 9. And then pin number 10 is not connected. Pin number 11 is start button. Pin number 12 is C. Pin number 13 is A. Then pin number 14 is left, and pin number 15 is up. So basically, what you're then going to do here, the next thing I'm going to do, I'll show you once I figure out a couple of these. These are my alligator clips. I'm going to put one of these on each of the wires that actually has a signal going on it. I'm not going to put one on pin number 2, which is not connected, pin number 10, which is not connected, and pin number 9, which is the second D button. What I'll usually do is I'll usually just like kind of put those together because they're not used. And what I'll usually do is I'll have, regardless of which ones of these I'm using, I'll have the +5 be an orange one and the ground be a black one. And then the rest will either be, the rest will either be red or black. But I'll always do that because it'll be easy. And then I'll make a wiring diagram on my computer that will tell me what, on this particular harness, which I'm sure will be the same with all of these extension cables, because I actually bought 4 of these at once. The colors should be all the same, because I have 2 of the, 2 other ones that I've already made, but they were different vendors that made those cables, so they're both different colors. But I'm going to go ahead and figure out a couple of these and then show you really quick how I, well, let's just actually just do this right now. Let's see if we can figure out what signal one of these pins are. Now, the easiest way of doing this, pick a color. I'm going to pick red just for fun. Get your wire stripper here. Now, this thing isn't the best thing in the world. It didn't cost me all that much, so I'll usually use the space between the strippers because it's a lot easier. And then you'll just very carefully strip that wire so you just expose some of the wire. You'll see some of the wires exposed. Now, take one of your electrodes, doesn't matter which, and touch that to the exposed portion here. And now, I will take my other hand and take the connector here and touch the other electrode to various points on the actual plug here, and then figure out which one red is. And would you believe, red just happens to be ground. So now what I'm going to do, I'll show you this really quick because This is something I'm going to do with all of these. So now I'm going to strip a little bit more of this because I have to more or less prepare it to receive its clip. And I want to have enough of the wire stripped so I can get the clip on here nicely. Okay, that's plenty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a black clip here. Pull the thing off of here. Okay. Take the actual housing piece here. Slide it over the wire, because I'll just put this back on here later. Okay, slide it over the wire, just drop it on. Then what you're going to do is, the way that these work, I don't know if this is going to be, and I've lost the wire. You got to be careful with that because, yeah. Now, back to here. There we go. Slide that on there. And now, as I said, the way that these work, I don't know how well the camera's going to pick up, is you'll see that it has two little wings. You just basically got to push one wing down and then the other wing down on the wire, and that gives you your connection. This is where your pliers come into play here. I'll see if I can actually do this on the camera. Turn off my multimeter for the minute. Okay, so what I like to do is I'll take the clip, take the first wing here, and just kind of press it down the right way, of course. Let me see. There we go. Okay. Press it down a little bit. And then get the wire. Put it underneath that. I want to make sure I can do this on camera decently here. Okay. Wire. Not something you really always do on camera, of course, because it's a little harder to... Because more or less what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to make a valid connection. Okay, there we go. So let's see. Then what I have to do here, make sure the wire's nicely in here, then press it down as much as you can with your hand so it's in there snugly. Now push the other wing down and then push that one into place. And now you'll see it is nicely on the wire. So all I have to do now is slide it up. What I like to do in this part is, let me see if I can find something here. Like get a screw or a small screwdriver or something. Here's a screw, this will do. See, this is just a screw. Take it, put it in the actual clip. And therefore, you'll see the back of the clip is actually now a lot smaller, and it's easier to slide this housing over the clip. So there we go. Our first connection, which is the ground connection, is now made. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this with the multimeter and map each one, and then of course in my document, which I called neogeo.txt, I'm going to put on this harness what each pin is, because I have my actual JAMA harnesses. I actually have pieces of paper taped on each thing that'll say player 1 up, player 1 button 1. So I'm just going to quickly go through that, and as I said, when I find the pin number 8, I will put a red one on it, and then I will put whatever color I'm using this time on all the rest of the pins. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back with you. Well, not right back with you, as this is going to take a few more minutes, but just to be a minute. Okay, now you see we have all of these wired up. The odd wires out here were the yellow wire, which was pin number 2, which is not connected. The purple wire, which was pin number, and I'm not in frame, pin number 10, which is not connected. And then this orange wire, which was that redundant D button, which is not needed. So what I'm going to do is connect it to this, which is actually from our Sega Model 2 harness, and this will then connect up to the actual wiring harness for Sega Model 2 and Sega Model 3, and I will then more or less use this as my permanent harness for that. And if you're wondering why I still connected all the clips if I'm permanently connecting it, it's because there are like some games that I like having, say, kick on button A, but maybe I would want kick on button B, so I can actually just change around the buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and get all of these wires connected to their proper contacts, as I have a guide in my wiring guide here. And then I'm just going to come back with you for one more moment and give you a closing to this video here. Okay, now as you see here, I've connected all the appropriate wires to the appropriate connections, with this one not being used. I'm guessing this is for a fourth button, which the Virtua Fighter games and most Model 2 games that I've played only use 3. And of course, our black and red connectors here, which are the ground and the +5, are not connected. And of course, one of the buttons and the select button are both not connected. But what I will go ahead and do next time is, in my next video, which is going to be a Virtua Fighter Model 2 how I hook that up video, is I'm going to hook this up to the control harness. But my only word of advice, if you're actually going to do this, since you have, these wires are very delicate, so you got to be very careful with them. And since you have 15 colored wires, you're going to come into, like, the problem I usually have with these is that they run out of colors, so they will do, this one did repeating colors with a white stripe, whereas some of the other cables I had did a black stripe. So what I'll do in my wiring diagram, so I know, I'll put, like, for instance, blue-white, meaning blue with a white stripe. So in this case, it's left. So that's how I'll know that's that button. And I will show you how I connect this to the game in my next video. But that was just to give you an idea of how I make one of these crazy controller harnesses, which now, of course, I can plug our controller into. Well, this isn't our controller, this is actually the plug that came off of here. I mean, our controller gets plugged into this, and then when that's connected to the arcade system, we will be able to play the game. But that will be in the next video that comes after this, which, as I said, will be how I hook up Sega Model 2. So I will see you in my next video, and yeah, I just figured I'd give you a nice tutorial on how I make one of these control harnesses. Now, mind you, it probably seemed pretty quick in this video, but in actuality, what I actually did here probably took me maybe between 1 and 2 hours, because it's not only stripping this, then isolating each wire. It of course depends on if I'm interrupted or not. If I'm not interrupted, I'll just be able to do it really quick, but of course if I'm interrupted a lot, then it's going to take a bit longer. But it's a long and tedious process, but once you do it, you just have to basically connect your wires and you can play your games. I'll probably be making another one of these that'll be a dedicated Gauntlet Legends harness. But I don't know if I'll be making any others. And as I said, at one point I just bought 4 of these. I know I mentioned it in one of my new pickups video, but usually if you get these generic ones, you can get them pretty cheap. You get them for less than $10 a piece. But yeah, they're very useful for this application. And of course, if you want to just extend a Neo Geo controller, it doesn't matter if you have a third-party one, they'll still do the job. But as I said, be careful with these wires because they are very delicate. If you yank on these things hard enough, they will come right off, or the wire themselves could break. But as I said, that's been another Game Nexus Arcade video, and I will see you next time. Bye.